Former President Rodrigo Duterte, through his lawyers, has filed a formal petition for interim release. Duterte's lawyer, Nicholas Kaufman, informed the International Criminal Court that a third country has agreed to receive Duterte onto its territory. The name of the said country is still being withheld. Kaufman said the petition is based on humanitarian considerations for Duterte given his advanced age. Digong turned 80 this year. They also gave submissions assuring the court that Duterte is not a flight risk, that the former president will not imperil proceedings if released, and that he will not commit the same crimes he is charged with. The Duterte camp also claimed in their request that there have been discussions about the interim release between the prosecution and the defense. ICC Assistant to Counsel Cristina Conti, however, expressed concern over the alleged discussion. In a statement, Conti expressed dismay over reports that the ICC prosecutor would not oppose Duterte's request for interim release. Conti added that victims of Duterte's drug war are against any special treatment for the former president. Conti hopes the ICC would give victims an opportunity to weigh in on the matter. Another lawyer to the alleged victims, Atty. Nery Colmenares, doubts that Duterte will abide by the conditions for his provisional release.
President Duterte has a track record for so many years of saying something and doing another. How can the court trust him for committing to follow what he promises when he has a track record of not following what he promised? So I think the courts will not listen to this kind of commitment on his part.
What's the chance of former President Duterte's release bid being granted? Tonight, we discuss this with ICC-accredited lawyer, Atty. Joel Butuyan. Good evening, Attorney, and welcome to The Big Story.
Good evening, Seth, and thanks for having me.
Well, first of all, will this be, the judges still have to agree to this, correct?
Correct. And in fact, the prosecutor and the victims' counsel will have to submit their views and observations on the application that was filed by the defense counsel.
Mm-hmm. But if it is correct that the prosecutor has agreed to this arrangement, will the lawyers of the victims also be able to weigh in?
Yes, the victims will have to weigh in. And even the prosecutor, in fact, because we've only heard the version of the defense counsel that the prosecution has already agreed, no? But if you're going to analyze the wordings of their application, the proper interpretation is that the prosecutor will agree to an interim release subject to conditionalities. And those conditionalities have not been revealed because they are treated as confidential in the application.
Mm-hmm. You will oppose this? Can we assume that?
We will vehemently oppose this. We're going to submit the views and observations of the victims, although we're going to do it through the Office of the Public Counsel for Victims, the OPCV. That's like the POW of the ICC, because at this point, the ICC has not appointed a permanent victims counsel.
Attorney Butuyan, I heard an interview given by ICC Assistant to Counsel, Attorney Cristina Conti, earlier this morning. She says that medyo tatlo yung main players when it comes to the ICC as a court. You have the defense, of course, the prosecutors, and the victims who are given, quite a big voice. Can we say that more or less the voice of the victims is actually just as weighty as the voice of the defense and the voice of the prosecution?
The main parties in an ICC trial are actually only the defense and the prosecutor. The victims are considered as participants, no? But their views carry weight, especially on matters like this, like interim relief, no? Interim release, because there are factual issues that that should be taken from the victims themselves, because with the prosecution and the defense, you're dealing here with foreign counsels, no? So you have to get the views and the observations of the victims because they are the ones who will feel threatened who will feel the intimidation once Mr. Duterte is given interim release.
Attorney, do you have any idea on the supposed host country? Right now, it's still undisclosed, but do you have any idea who it could possibly be?
It's not identified. Although, if you're going to base it on past cases, it was Belgium that agreed to be a host country in the case of an African accused. No. And it's really practical for Belgium to act as host country because it's adjacent to the Netherlands. So if Mr. Duterte is going to be required to attend the hearings, it's going to be just less than an hour travel from between Brussels and The Hague.
Is there a precedent or are there precedents on the release of an accused on humanitarian grounds? What are the conditions? What falls under humanitarian grounds?
Well, actually, even the defense acknowledge and admit that humanitarian grounds are not actually one of the specific grounds that are mentioned in the Rome Statute, and that would trigger interim release. No. There would be conditionalities that are usually imposed by the ICC on the granting of interim release. This would include the restriction to travel outside of the jurisdiction of the host country, the prohibition against communicating with victims and witnesses, and the prohibition against the use of gadgets. That's one. In fact, in the application of the defense, they have actually proposed, they have already undertaken that Mr. Duterte is not going to be using any internet or any electronic gadget. And he is also undertaking that he's not going to communicate outside of with any person outside of his family. He's also undertaken not to attend public engagements, no, and to perform official duties.
Okay.
So what are the conditionalities that are being offered by Mr. Duterte in order for him to be given interim release?
These conditionalities to you are not enough to shield the victims from possible harassment or you know, assuage their fear of a retaliation.
Yes. It's not enough, says. You know, even when Mr. Duterte was arrested, so many victims, so many witnesses refused actually to still come out and participate and cooperate with the ICC because there was still fear, no? There was still paralyzing fear in them. Now, if you're going to release Mr. Duterte, more so that they're not going to be participating in the ICC processes. No? We have here a person who does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. From the very beginning, he withdrew our country's membership in the ICC. He does not recognize and he violates international law, even our constitution. No? So whatever agreement he's going to sign into, it's going to be a piece of paper and he's not going to, at the first opportunity, he's going to violate it.
Attorney Butuyan, the attorneys of former President Duterte pointed out that he is no longer in a position to be able to commit these crimes again because hindi na siya president, he's not in the position of authority. Is that not enough? Are the victims not buying that line from the Duterte defense?
We're not buying that line, you know. Just last November, he appeared in the Quadcom hearings in the lower house in Congress. And he said that if he's going to be elected as mayor, he's going to double the casualties, no, in a renewed drug war. So, you know, this person, and besides, his followers, we see what they've been doing, no? They engage in rallies almost every day in The Hague, and their battle cry is to bring back Mr. Duterte to the Philippines. Even Mr. Duterte's family, That's the objective. They filed a case in the Supreme Court, and in their rallies that they go to and attend, that's the battle cry is to bring back Mr. Duterte.
So do you think the fact that he actually ran for mayor and won could actually be detrimental to this bid for interim release?
It is, no? It is. It gives him power again, and with the many supporters that he has, even by just his presence or any statement that he makes, no, any veiled statement that he makes, would be taken seriously by this as marching orders by these followers of his.
How soon do we expect the prosecutor to respond?
The ICC pretrial chamber is going to give the prosecutor and the victims' counsel time to respond. Well, normally it would be 10 days, sometimes it's 15 days for these parties to respond before the pretrial chamber would decide on this issue.
We were actually expecting that they would apply for an interim release, like the lawyers of the former president, that is, right?
Yes, yes. A few weeks after Mr. Kaufman was appointed, he actually already said that he plans to file an application for interim release for Mr. Duterte. So we were expecting this, actually.
Yeah, but apparently there were negotiations. They talked to a third country, to the prosecutor also. What could have happened? I mean, is this allowed as well, that talks between the prosecutor and the defense happen outside of court?
To be objective about it, it's really allowed, no? It's there are talks, there are inter partes talks that happen between the prosecution and defense, and especially if the issue is treated as confidential. Yes, it happens.
Attorney, well, if we're talking about precedents, there have been previous cases already of individuals being granted interim release. Pero tama po ba na their cases weren't as grave as the one that Mr. Duterte is facing, which is crimes against humanity? So, ibig sabihin, yung mga nag-grant na dati ng interim release, mas mababa lang naman kasi yung kaso nila, like obstruction of justice. Kaya nag-grant
tampering, mga ganon.
Yes.
Yeah.
True. That's true, no? And in fact, in one case where interim release was granted, it resulted in the disappearance and the killings of witnesses, no? This is in the case of Mr. Bemba of Kenya. So this should be at the back of the minds of the judges if and when they consider this application for interim release by Mr. Duterte.
And how many judges will be deciding whether or not to grant this interim release? Is it also the 3 judges, or is it going to be more than that?
The 3 judges are going to decide. They are the judges of the pretrial chamber 1, which is assigned to hear the pretrial stage of the Duterte case.
And is this done using paper submissions only, or will you get to like go to, the ICC and kind of debate this on the floor?
Yeah, it's usually paper submissions. It's very rare when the pretrial chamber would call for a hearing on this issue.
And Attorney, well, you did mention that the voices of the victims are just as important as the prosecution, the defense. What's the latest now on the victims? Are more people stepping forward as you conduct your investigation further, leading up to the September trial, facing of charges?
Yes, actually, we're doing workshops for the victims so that they can file their application forms to the ICC, because they have to file application forms in order for them to be recognized as victim participants, no, in the trial and later on in the reparation stage.
Can you share with us their reaction to this development?
A lot of them are shocked. No, to the victims that I have talked to so far, a lot of them are shocked, and they are in disbelief that this is happening, especially when news is coming out that the prosecutor agreed, no, which is actually misleading, because it will agree only subject to conditions, no. But the message is that the message that they're getting is that the prosecutor has agreed, no, which is really, really disappointing for them.
So should they have used maybe amenable, right? But it also, as Cess was pointing out earlier, it shows that meron talagang pag-uusap between the prosecution and defense. Is it okay that the defense actually said, are these conversations supposed to be, like you said, confidential? Tapos sinabi nila sa release nila na, oh, nakausap na namin yung prosecution and they're open to it.
Yes. It sends a chilling message, no?
Parang medyo weird, di ba?
That's true, no? That's true. Dahil yung framing niya ng kanyang presentation on the agreement of the prosecution is sobrang talagang parang under the table na nangyari, no? Kumbaga.
Parang
Yes, but we will only hear from the prosecutor in his response to the court.
Yes. Yes, we will hear from the prosecutor when they make the response.
And this is as usual. I mean, we've seen how the court works. Medyo mabilis. Usually 10 days to 2 weeks, more or less, may reply na. So can we count on that kind of same timeline-ish?
I think so, yes. Oo, mabilis yung court, no? I think there's really the intention to resolve the preliminary issues before September 23. So I expect that this issue on interim release and the jurisdictional issue will be resolved before the September 23 confirmation of charges.
Attorney Butuyan, what's in it for the host country? Why would the host country, be willing to
Host.
somebody accused of, horrible crime?
Kasama kasi doon sa mga obligations ng mga state parties, no? That if there are going to be requests and there is going to be, if assuming na mayroong agreement between the prosecutor and the defense, there are countries that seriously consider their obligations under the ICC to facilitate the trial. So, ganun yung nangyayari. Although, bihira yung mga countries na ganito, no? Na kagaya ng Belgium, that agrees to really, especially, siguro, nakikita naman siguro nila kung gaano gulo yung nangyayari dun sa mga supporters ni Mr. Duterte. They take over the parks, no?
Yeah.
So,
But can they say no, Attorney Butuyan? Do they have the chance to change their mind or decline if they are signatory countries of the Rome Statute?
yes, they can say no, actually. And in fact, when the ICC judges will impose conditions, they still have the right to say no, na hindi namin po pwedeng gawin yung obligasyon na yan o hindi namin kaya yung obligasyon na yan. They can still say that.
All right. Well, abangan ang susunod na kabanata. This is another Duterte in the news. Thank you so much for your time, Attorney Joel Butuyan. Marami pong salamat.